Welcome to this YouTube exclusive of the Marvel Cinematic University podcast. I'm AC, that's Jake. And the reason that we're here is we heard some news today in the good old MCU that apparently the Russo brothers are in talks to come back and direct both Avengers 5 and 6, aka Secret Wars. Jake, this news kind of surprised a lot of people. What were your thoughts?
It's a I'll say this, it surprised me in that there were not whispers of it beforehand. But if you had told me that the Russo brothers were coming back to direct Avengers 5 and 6 like 2 months ago, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. You know what I mean? Like, it's not surprising that they picked them. It's surprising that kind of came out of nowhere. My general thought is like, that's fine. Like, I'm not no complaints. On one hand, I would have wished like maybe they had someone more exciting, but obviously like only so much of someone's voice is going to come through in a movie with like 100 characters. And I think what this tells me is, and it's completely understandable, they want these two movies to be a drama-free production. Because say what you will about the Russo brothers and how they are directing. I've
Mhm.
seen The Gray Man, so I can say plenty. But the fact that they managed to make Infinity War and Endgame with, as far as we know, no real crazy production shit, that is a small miracle. And I think that they are incredibly adept at managing that. And so, like, I get it, and I'm glad to know that like they're not taking chances with this. And even though that might mean it's creatively stunted in some ways, we're not going to hear set dysfunction stuff. A ton of crazy rewrite. Like that's not going to happen on this movie. And I think the MCU can't have that happen because if these two movies have bad buzz, then like they're screwed from the start. They can't have bad buzz on these movies.
Yes, I think this is a function of. I don't think this is even a function of Kevin Feige. I think this is a function of Bob Iger telling
Yep.
these guys, "Hey, man, this is it. This is it for real, for real." Like I've been thinking about this all day since the news came about, and I'm not disappointed. Like I know the Russos. I mean, the history with the MCU has been what it is, and they've made successful film after successful film there. Now, I will caution people this. I really will caution people this. So remember, we're moving further away from Avengers Endgame. We're moving further away from Civil War and Winter Soldier, Infinity War, all of those things. We're in a different time. Also, these are not the same characters, especially not all of them, especially not the people that you're putting at the front lines. And that's something that can't be really forgotten here, because the biggest complaints of Phase 4 and Phase 5 is, well, it's either the Kang timeline multiverse stuff not working, and also who the fuck are these people? That's been like, and this is not my complaint.
No.
This is the majority's complaint.
Yeah.
And when these criticisms come through, you have to, if you have to just objectively look at it, it's not the regular fans' job to be like, well, listen, man, the Russos are back. They're gonna spoon feed me my MCU as I'm used to getting it, and that's cool. As somebody who watches and sees and kind of like understands the nature of not only what's going on business wise in this country and in the world as far as entertainment is going, this is going to be interesting because this is now the test case of what, because the MCU for the past 3 years, whether we agree with it or disagree with it or
Mhm.
not, has not gotten over these characters in the way that they needed to.
Yep.
So now you're entering this situation where you're going to move into two movies. At least one of them is going to be heavily leaning on some of your old stalwarts and some of the legendary folks that we've seen in the past, and that's cool. But guess what? What are you going to do after that? What is that going to mean for all these things going forward? While it's great to focus on the present, it's great to focus how to get here. We had this conversation at the end of Secret Invasion, and it was the first time ever that we talked about the possible end of the MCU
Yeah.
and what that would look like and what the
Hmm.
potential of that would be. And I'm telling you this right now. I feel like with a move like this, and this may be a hot take. This
Hmm.
may be something out of left field for me, and I normally don't go there with these types of things. A move like this signals to me that I think they even see the end of this.
Yeah. Well, they
So
see the
that's kind of where I
possibility
am
of
with
the end of
this.
it.
Yes.
Like I don't think that I don't think that they think that it's gonna end. I think that they're like, okay, if these two movies don't go over, because they're gonna end up being probably the most expensive movies ever made, just based on what we know. And that's not a problem if they make Infinity War Endgame numbers. But like
Hmm.
if they don't, then like yeah, like if these movies like make like $600 million each, then I have no clue if the MCU is there the next day. From a business sense, it probably shouldn't be because like if you can't get these movies over, then what can you get over? And so I think that they want to make sure that these movies hit. They want to make sure, like I said, that there's no problems. That you know that yeah, that like that if these movies don't work, then like it's because the MCU's over, not because of some writing issue, some production issue.
Yep.
And so, they're playing it safe, but once again, I don't really think that that's the worst thing in the world when you're talking about one of these
No.
movies. Like, if they're playing it safe with, like, with the Wonder Man TV show, I'm like, that's chicken shit. It's no one cares. But like, these are like gigantic
Hmm.
properties, and so like, it's not a crazy or unreasonable thing to say, hey. We're gonna do a thing that's only been done once before. Let's bring back the guys who did it the thing before. The thing that concerns me most is that, like, once again, having seen The Gray Man, if you said, hey, do you want the guys whose last movie they directed was The Gray Man to direct an MCU movie? I would say absolutely not. I don't want them to direct a Kia commercial. But that's mean. The Gray Man's not that bad. But like, I hope that I hope that that's an aberration, and I hope that they still have their ability to. Because like the thing that Infinity War and Endgame do so well is that like they really have these characters so well established, and the relationships, like the comedic relationships these characters have immediately, it's just like it really is kind of astonishing how quickly these characters are set up, how deftly it moves between things. Like it is a thing that I think is really easy to underrate, to act like it's, but like a lot of directors would not have been able to balance it as well as they did. And so like yeah, there's right now there is now a floor to how these movies are going to be, and I think that if you are Kevin Feige, he's feeling Bob Iger breathe down your neck. You're like, we're more concerned about a floor than we are about a ceiling. This is not the time to be risky. We can be risky if these movies do well. We can be risky when we do, this, a freaking Herbie movie. Like,
Yeah.
but now we gotta hit, we gotta get on base.
Yeah, it's incredibly important, and I view 2025, obviously, and what begins next week with Deadpool and Wolverine as the most important time in the MCU's history in terms of like at least in present history. And now it's time to deliver. Time to deliver on some of the things that we've been waiting for over the past couple of years, and seemingly via the Hollywood Reporter in Avengers 5, they seem to be taking the focus off of Kang. And I will say this, they held on to that idea for a very long time.
Yeah.
Very, very long. And I think it just comes down to two things. One, the storyline did not hit with people
Mm-hmm.
as it was meant to. And then two, the person who they put everything in all their eggs into the basket for, turned out to be a shitty person.
Yep.
And that unfortunately is just as big of a reason as anything else is why I think they're moving on, because I think the fact that this person had left such a imprint on the character
Mm-hmm.
that it's just very difficult to bring. I think it just thinking about it over the time passing, it's just difficult to bring somebody else
Yeah.
in
I
with
think they
that same
will,
thing.
though. I think they'll
I
bring in someone
do,
else to play the
but
character.
in a smaller
Exactly.
role,
Because I
much
think the
smaller
problem is
role.
the name Kang is right now inextricably tied to Jonathan Majors. And
Yes.
so I think that like naming a movie Kang Dynasty is going to make people think of him. And that's not what they want. And honestly, I think a lot of people who are like big fans who care a lot about canon are probably going to be mad about whatever way they switch, like they make it focus on something else, whatever. And I would always rather a franchise kind of hastily cut bait on a storyline that's not working than go out to its logical conclusion. Like, although obviously now we're gonna see it in Brave New World, but like what they have, everyone's wondering like, what's about this new island that was formed in the Pacific in Eternals? Why is no one talking about that? It's like if the plotline doesn't work, I would rather them ignore it. That actually doesn't bother me that much if I think the plot, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
if the
Mhm.
Kang plotline is not working, I would rather them just pretend it didn't happen than keep writing it till the wheels fall off and no one cares anymore. And so yeah, I'm not gonna judge the decision to drop Kang until I learn what they replace it with, because like, that's kind of a silly thing. But yeah, I think that they're being very measured about whatever they
Very.
choose instead. Because it needs to be something that hits. Like the Thanos thing was kind of a miracle because I talk all the time about how much less screen time Thanos had before Infinity War than people think. He probably had like 4 minutes of screen time total in any
Hmm.
movie, and I think that that's the thing that people kind of. I think that's honestly what didn't really work with Kang is I think they you can make the argument they showed way too much of him before he became the main villain.
Well, and they also showed him get his ass whooped. That was the other
Exactly, that didn't
problem.
help either. And
Yeah.
so, like, I honestly think it actually might be even like a blessing to have a fresh villain that we don't have this, history with, because they established Thanos really quickly. Like, I think that people talk themselves into like, oh, if it's gonna be a big bad, you need to spend time. Like, no, Thanos, you saw him in a couple post credit scenes, and then he showed up, beat the shit out of the Hulk, and you knew that he was like, you didn't need him to be in 5 different shows beforehand in big parts.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think if the focus is going to shift, the focus needs to shift towards the team and making sure that we
Yep.
get the camaraderie that was established in the original Avengers, the things that made us care about these characters all the
Hmm.
way back when. They need to find a way to establish that in this movie.
Hmm.
Like, give us a reason to think that Anthony Mackie is as Captain America is somebody you could look to as a leader of the Avengers.
Hmm.
And regardless of how like the dude bros are always after Brie Larson and Captain Marvel, hey man, give Carol Danvers something good to chew on as a
Hmm.
leader of the Avengers. Like, all of these things matter. And listen, Letitia Wright too. Like, she's gonna be a big part of the franchise. Shang-Chi, Miss Marvel. Like, we're talking about all these new folks
Hmm.
who are the face of this now. So it's gonna be very important, extremely important, that they give these characters
Yeah.
something good.
And you know what? The first Avengers movie is not really about. It's not really about the villain. Like Loki,
No.
they bring back a villain from a previous movie. Like it's not really mostly about the villain. Like, and I think that people are overthinking it. People are like really into the comics, like, oh, it needs to be this. But it's like, no, all these movies, the fifth Avengers movie definitely needs to be much more about the heroes coming together than it does a specific villain, because if we don't have moments where we understand, like, what the fuck does Spider-Man and Shang-Chi's relationship look like? I'm not saying that there's nothing to be like, but I want to know. I
Yeah.
want to see these things. The magic of the Avengers was holy shit, Thor and Captain America are talking to each other. And like, it just feels like really noticeable that it has been 5 years since we've really gotten, like, we've had some like small crossovers here and there, but it's like I really think like it's so notable that it's like Thor was introduced in 2011 and he was in an Avengers movie in 2012. Like,
Hmm.
I understand that the production process is different, but it's like you're really asking a lot to make people care about these characters, and care about their relationships and how they fit in. And so I think that they have their work cut out for them, but I think if they don't succeed, I don't think it will be because they don't know what they're doing. I think what I'm saying about these, I think, is the thing Kevin Feige knows. I don't think Kevin Feige is mistaken about what made the first Avengers movie successful. I think he knows damn well what made it successful.
100%. I'll close on this. I think as we look forward, again, like 2025, like everything that we get with Captain America, even I would say even something like the Thunderbolts to a lesser extent, assuming that we get any news on Spider-Man later in the year, like these films in 2025 will have a lot of weight to them. They're, a lot more weight than you would have expected a couple of years ago because, I mean, to be quite honest, after you have a bunch of misfires and
Yeah.
misstarts, and you have all of these reporters circling like buzzards
Mm-hmm.
and getting all of this information on all of the problems behind the
Mm-hmm.
scenes and everything going on along with that, you need as much good press as possible.
Yeah.
So there are obviously very positive things that everybody said about Deadpool and Wolverine, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
get more into that next week. But with everything going on, this is a fascinating to me. It's a fascinating um thing to look at because both the Russos and Marvel Studios need each other right now.
Oh yeah, the Russos definitely need to win. Even though like they produced, like, I mean, they were producers on Everything Everywhere All at Once. They weren't. They were not like the main producers, which is why they didn't get Oscars. In case anyone's wondering, the way that the Oscars work is that only 3 producers who have just producer credit. It can't be executive producer. It has to just be producer. You have to choose 3 of them in order to be eligible for the Oscar. In case anyone was wondering, um, it's just how the rules work. It's because Shakespeare in Love had like 5 people get up there, so they
Yeah.
made it only to be 3. Anyway, that they need it because like I said, the Gray Man is like they lost any respectability they really had, And I think that they kind of made themselves look a little clownish with some of the comments on like AI and stuff like that. Like they're kind of like Joe in particular is kind of just like he sometimes sounds like an idiot when he makes comments, and so they need it. And who else needs it? We need it because
Yeah.
a couple years ago, I tried to brainstorm alternate titles for the show if we ever wanted to like lose the MCU branding, and most of them aren't that good. So don't make us change the title of the show. I really, because I want to keep doing the show, and like I don't want to have to. The list of titles I have is not that good. So please, the MCU needs to survive because I don't want to have to use any of those other titles.
Yes, and I think the most fun part as a fan
Mm-hmm.
is now it feels like you're going into these movies with a little more added. Man, I really am hoping that these are very good.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways it's fun. It's like watching your favorite sports team in a playoff game. Like it feels like
It's,
this is the playoffs for the
somehow
MCU
it's
again.
somehow the MCU is like building an underdog narrative, which is classic. That's classic Hollywood. Is the juggernaut is gonna get kicked down a couple times. Like I think I can predict that I can already see the headlines in 2 weeks when Deadpool and Wolverine makes a ton of money of like it's not over till it's over. The MCU is back. Like that's gonna happen. And then Brave New World's probably not gonna do that well. And then whatever's next is gonna like
And
it's
that's why I want to say this, and that's why I echoed the statements earlier in terms of Secret Wars. Remember, they're bringing back all of the folks that you love. Deadpool, Wolverine, Hugh Jackman is back. So folks is just like you don't need to sell anybody on that. People are going to go see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine and Ryan Reynolds together. So that selling doesn't need to be done. It's the rest of the stuff
yeah.
that's what the reminder is, and hopefully they find a way to do that.
I hope
So
so
we
too. Yep.
so we'll see what happens there. But just wanted to get that little bit off. For obviously, if you're watching this video, like, subscribe, comment, all of those things. For Jake, I'm AC. We will talk to you on the other side.